As I shared with you in the email newsletter this week, Pastor's Note, this love that the author is speaking of isn't love for the general public, but it's love for fellow Christians, those who are in the church. Speaking that we should have this love for one another. But you know something, today more than ever, what most folks know is controlled by digital communication, which can be altered, can be twisted, can be hyperbolized, and then launched around the world in a matter of seconds. Computer experts continue to remind us, and we're hard-headed and we can't seem to get it, that we should not trust anything that can be digitally altered. I had a fellow, we got in a big discussion one time over something, and he said, well, it must be true, it was on the internet. And I looked at him and I said, seriously, you believe everything that you read on the internet? You know, from emails to photographs to audio recordings, they can all be altered. So what is a person of faith to believe in this untrustworthy world of twisted truths? I get sick and tired watching the so-called 24-hour news channels. I use Yahoo. I hate to pull up and see today's text argues that one truth cannot be twisted. And that truth is this: God is love. But what does that mean to the rescue worker who has clawed a limp baby from under the wreckage of a high-rise apartment leveled by an earthquake? Ask a social worker who has visited her 21st abuse victim this week, and all of them under the age of 12. Ask the families of those who were murdered at the Waffle House in Nashville this past week. Or the parents or grandparents of the newborn who died in the NICU unit. Ask the doctor who tells the young mother that she has a rare brain disease and must start telling her children goodbye. God is love. Then explain the Holocaust. Explain ethnic cleansing. Explain slavery and racism. Explain the agony of debilitating disease. Explain that to the victims of drive-by shootings. Folks, in the face of calamities, we must stop uttering the platitude of our text as a feel-good mantra, a theological band-aid for those in the depths of grief. Instead, we must start the conversation about the love of God with the admission that there are things in this world which do count, against the notion that God is love. The unbeliever quickly argues that the evidence points to the conclusion that God is not love at all, and likely never was a God of love. The believer, because they are a believer, admits that the evidence counts against the assertion that God is love, but because they are a believer, they do not think it counts decisively against the assertion. And this is a legitimate stance to take. God is love. It's an affirmation of faith. It's not an assertion intended to answer the why question when the specter of evil shows its face. The God of the text is described in terms of relationship. You see, we experience God, if we are paying attention, as the one who blesses and sometimes curses, who sometimes gives meaning and sometimes gives what is meaningless. And we are simply asked, according to verse 13, to abide in Him. God loves by dwelling with us, living with us, whether we are in the throes of agony or in the sublime joys of all that is meaningful. Much of life may not seem to make sense. Boy, sometimes it's really crazy, isn't it? Much of life may not seem to make sense, at least on this side of the grave. For many of us, God, who is the stranger who acts and does not act. And yet we abide with this stranger. And sometimes behold a glimpse of meaning. Sometimes God becomes present to us and dwells with us because of the jarring, meaningless experiences of life. In his Gethsemane ordeal, even Jesus was given pause by the shocking turnabout of events in his life. For him, the love of God was decisive, enabling him to live and die in the midst of the tragic, the devastating, and the soul-wrenching. Jesus' enemies thought he was twisted. They were wrong. He was soul twisted. He, like you and I, are soul twisted believers who live life with a twist. God is love. God is love. As twisted as it sounds in this crazy world, this is the ultimate truth. And it's God's word for us today. And as an afterthought, I would share with you something that a friend sent me this morning. And I thought it was timely. And I jotted it down just so I could share it. It's a quote from Nancy Guthrie, and she says this: "Sometimes I think we are more impatient to fix people in the midst of grief than God is. God is a patient healer. He doesn't always heal instantly, and He doesn't always give insight instantly." Would you pray with me? God, we cry out sometimes, God, that you seem so distant, so far away, so unconcerned. And yet, God, to whom else can we cry? Hear our voices, O God. Hear our grief, hear our concern. And respond as only you can. For you alone are God. You alone possess perfect love. So love us this morning as you loved us in Jesus' name.